Great. So I'm now going to turn the program over to our operating partner, Penny Cook, to give you some information about our upcoming events and introduce our speakers. Penny?
Thank you so much, Kristen. So as Kristen said, HTC is beginning an exciting series over the next 8 months of webinars and a series of 3 symposia called Cultivating the Network of Care. And this is related to improving care transitions and reducing avoidable rehospitalizations. Next slide, please. The series is really based on the 3 drivers of effective care transitions. So in the first section, we really sort of call it getting your house in order. It's really designed to improve your internal processes. And we'll be learning things such as teach back, more information about discharge planning, and improving medication reconciliation. The second section is really designed for information about working within your community and working with your community partners. So during this part of the series, we really are trying to enhance the network of care via communication between all the community partners throughout the care continuum. And then the third section of the series is related to patient and family engagement. So it's really about solidifying the support system for patients and their caregivers. Next slide, please. So I want to highlight our series of 3 symposia first. And exciting, the first symposium is next Friday, June 26th. And this is Building Transformation from the Inside Out. And this is going to feature Dr. Jay Wand, and a series of some great speakers that are really going to talk about that first driver in improving care transitions, which is getting your internal processes in order. And please register for this symposium on the Healthy Transitions Colorado website, and we'll have information about that at the end also. The second symposium is Nurturing Community Collaboration, and that will be on October 16th. And that will feature Jane Brock and a series of great speakers about how you work with your community partners, and we'll be facilitating discussion around that. And then the last symposium is Fostering Patient and Family Engagement, and that's going to be January 15th of 2016. And again, that's all about how do you bring patients and families into the mix of this, because patient activation and family activation is such an important part of improving care transitions. All these symposia will be held at the Denver Police Protection Association, and the cost is $65 for each one, or you can attend all 3 for $150. So again, after this webinar, please register at the HTC website. Next slide. To go along with the symposium, we want to make sure that there's work and discussion in between. So we're holding a monthly webinar series to really complement the conversation. And we hope to highlight great Colorado innovations and also just best practices and interventions that everyone can use. Next slide. So during this first kickoff webinar, we want to show some examples of successful models of care collaboratives in Colorado. So we have featured the South Denver Care Continuum, or better known as SDCC, which is in the South Denver metro area, and the Sharing the Care campaign in Fort Collins. So the first person you'll be hearing from is Maria Oren. She's actually the chair of the South Denver Care Continuum. And then you'll be hearing from Kate Spruill and Deanne Westfall, who are from the leadership team of the Sharing the Care campaign in Fort Collins. So right now I'm going to turn it over to Maria.
Good morning, and thank you so much for inviting me to the symposium. Real quickly, before we get started, I have a little bit of a challenge for us. I have about 5 years of history, best practices, and some challenges that SDCC faced over the last 5 years, and I need to provide that information in about 15 minutes. I can speak fast, but if you have questions in regard to anything that I'm sharing, I'm going to give you 2 other places where you can contact me. So my personal cell is 303-918-5896. My email is my first initial and my last name, so it's moren, and then the @ symbol, Team Select, TEAMSELECT, for home health, and then .com. And then, of course, the most important contact would be the www.southdenvercc.org, and that would be southdенvercarecontinuum.org. So if we move to the first slide, what is South Denver Care Continuum? And it's a work group, and it's really to have a conversation and start engagement processes for each individual agency throughout the continuum of care for our seniors. There are some commitments, and we're going to go over them in a minute, but transparency and commitment to all meetings and to all members is vital to achieving the readmission reduction goals as well as improving education of trends. And, of course, navigating the challenges within each of the healthcare spectrum. Although members are always continuing professional relationships and networking, just a reminder that SDCC is not a marketing group. Next slide. The history of SDCC. Back in 2010, when all the reimbursement challenges were being introduced by Medicare, as well as some of the penalties that were associated with readmissions, the Christian living communities had the forethought to host a roundtable discussion and send out invitations to the hospitals, downward acute care providers such as SNFs and ALFs and independents and non-medical and ambulance, and it was amazing. We had quite a few turnout at that beginning conversation, and through word of mouth, we probably had 60 different representing companies at our first initial meeting. It has grown consistently, as I think we've had up to 150 total members. And of course, over the years, with changes of people's employment and such, and choices of maybe they're getting out of healthcare or switching gears, that membership has peak and flowed, I suppose. But really, the mainstay of those entities have still stayed strong. The purpose, next slide, purpose of SDCC, the whole goal of why we meet, is to reduce rehospital readmissions through improved committed collaboration. And that looks like an overall commitment. So each member is committed to the successful transitions of care through collaboration, through communication, through the utilization of the tools that we're going to go over. And then taking it back into our own agencies and improving communication and processes internally so we can be on the same page as our hospitals, as well as our physicians' offices, acute care providers and such. And the whole goal is to have standardized languages and processes, which is not really a small feat. Next slide. Why participate? Well, first we have the hospital penalties, and each year we anticipate some increase in readmission penalties. Currently it's 3%. And now on top of the hospital penalties, they're also looking to implement the home health and the skilled nursing facility penalties. And right now we're in the window of collecting data. And as of October of 2015, the primary care physician will also be penalized. So kind of a step back real quickly. And if you're new to why is this important or how does this impact us, we are a home care, and we are a skilled home care, and we are a Medicare certified agency. So if one of our patients returns to the hospital, more than likely any other collaborative that is touching this patient or any other partner, such as a primary care physician or a hospital or skilled nursing, will also receive the same penalty at the same time, regardless of the readmission reason. And that's a little daunting, especially if you're talking to a PCP that maybe has not seen their patient in 3 years. So there's a lot of care collaboration of why we're admitting into home care, why they're readmitting into the hospital. Should there be a different level of care? So all of those go to the value and the commitment that SDCC has in any of those transitions. And again, we also talk about the assistance by other members on navigating tracking readmissions rates in a way that allows for benchmarking against other providers and settings. And that's really important, like kind of like what I was just speaking to. So if we have a readmission, the skilled nursing facility may not have that readmission because they've already been discharged, but our readmission back in the hospital definitely would impact their scores. Improved processes for all members, elimination of duplicate tests, labs, costs with improved communication. I'm going to give an example of this in a little bit. Improved patient care and outcomes, which is efficiency, which is, I think, everybody's goal. Next slide. Some of the SDC member commitments, and this is just a 3,000-foot snapshot. And we're a little loose on these, but in true effort, we are trying to create a stable and secure format for all the SDC members to utilize as new members join, as partners come to the table that are touching our patient that maybe not have any idea about SDCC of why behind the what. The biggest piece is attendance. If you have attendance at accountability meetings and at the standard meetings, or excuse me, the large group meetings, then we see the needle move as a whole to improve. So there's several different meetings we're going to go over. The attendance at a bi-monthly big meeting and the monthly accountability meetings where the clinicians or the ops manager that can effectively discuss care transitions and impact quality improvement. It is a QAPI review. It's one time of year that the agencies report to the group regarding their return to hospital data as well as best practices learned. Implement Interact tools. And Interact, I'm going to go over that in a minute, but truly Interact allows for critical thinking skills, whether the patient or the resident can stay safe or transfer. It improves the communication skills between all members, such as using an S-bar or an algorithm to guide the PCP to adjust the plan, like what recent changes has occurred, rather than just saying, you know, I don't know. Betty White looks a little different today than she did yesterday. You have some data to guide the physician to say, you know what, I think it's a UTI. We should probably just get an antibiotic. No, I don't believe an ER visit is necessary. You know, MDs on call especially aren't really astute to the patient's change. So those algorithms on the Interact tool are very vital in implementing the stop and watch and giving the PCP real accurate information. And the stop and watch is a great tool for the residents or the patient to determine, you know, if I'm in a green or a yellow or a red zone and they've been taught back on those zones, they can have a better chance of understanding what is necessary and what their next steps are, if it's urgent, emergent, or critical, or just needs a PCP office visit tomorrow. And of course, the Interact algorithm helps us identify issues that are critical, especially like, for example, if a UTI, you can look at and catch it early with changes versus holding on to that and allowing it to become septic. So some of the expectations on the member commitments is that they implement the Interact tool and that they are all trained, the key managers within each facility, whether it be an operational manager or a DON, and that they implement the best processes and practices from lessons learned in the agency. Next slide, please. The SDCC member commitment in prevention of unnecessary rehospitalization, our 2015 objective and goal is, of course, as a whole, to have a 3% relative improvement rate reduction in a 30-day rehospitalization window. And as an agency, it's also a 3% relative improvement independently. Next slide. So how do we do that? That's a great question. I heard an answer the other day when I was at a different meeting, and they said, we just cross our fingers and pray. They don't go back. And I thought, that's wise. That happens a lot. I can relate to that. But one of the best practices, I think, that we've all determined at our meeting is that the basic tools, the Interact training and the usage of the tools, the Advancing Excellence tracking tool. There's a lot of tracking tools out there. This one's free on the Internet. And the one reason why we like that, it's the whole picture of the patient from the discharge from the hospital, the PCP involvement, if they had a rehab stay, when their rehab stay was, if a home health picked up non-medical involvement, and if they were readmitted, why. So you could speak clearly to all the other members that are touching this patient what is occurring with that, because you need to come up with a resolution. And that's tough, especially if noncompliance and you have possible behavioral health or mental illness that is also affecting engagement. Our job is not to fix that. Our job is to help them find the best, absolute, most safest system or choice for services for them. The next one is the PAM tool. That's our Loving Patient Activation Measurement tool. And it's done either at the hospital or the skilled nursing facility to initiate, to determine where the patient is engaged, to ensure that the patient understands how to take their medications, that they have a pretty decent, comprehensive understanding of their diagnosis and how engaged they are at managing either their COPD, their med management for diabetes, or diet and such. It just helps us understand as an agency, is this going to be somebody who needs a lot of teaching, or a lot of assistance, or somebody who's pretty much engaged and will be successful. The LACE tool, excuse me, and I speak a lot in acronyms. I've been in healthcare a long time. I have no idea what LACE stands for, but it is a hospital tracking, or excuse me, it's a hospital data tracking where you can actually, the hospitals can go in and see the data. So the PAM is more patient perspective, and the LACE is absolutely nonfiction, and it is the tracking method of the how many times this patient is readmitted and for what reasons. And so they can look at a factual history of this patient to determine at what risk they have for readmission. Something that SDCC found valuable is to, when they identify a patient that maybe is a higher PAM, is that they are given a discharge binder. It's called Staying Healthy at Home, and it helps the patient, and that's at time of admission. It helps the patient track who their PCP is, when their last visit was. It has a medical record in there. It talks about who their therapy team is, their home health team, where they get transportation from, when their next PCP appointment is, and it allows the patient to be a part of the plan of care. I know we all do a great job, but sometimes a patient needs to have that physical handout in their hand or that binder in their hand so they can review it and add to it or change it. And anybody can add or change information. The home care companies, we put our information in the back of the binder so she or he can review it once home care has left for the day, and so they know there's ongoing activities they need to be compliant with, such as physical therapy or how they pivot when they transfer safely into the bathroom. And that's all there for them, so they don't have a multitude of binders as well. And again, one other tool that we use at SDCC that helps us be very successful is we come up with a baseline of our readmission rate. And I left a kind of an idea. If you're not tracking, we kind of, Medicare.org, Medicare.gov has more than likely, if you're a Med-A facility that accepts skilled patients, your information will be online on Medicare.gov, and you can take that rate and then, again, take it times 0.03 times your current rate, and that should be your expected goal for the end of 2015. Next slide, please. So SDCC believes that accountability is really the backbone and the baseline of all change. And I couldn't agree with them more. The accountability meetings are monthly, and it's a review of all the transition case studies, of all the return to hospital patients. We've all signed an agreement at the beginning. It is HIPAA compliant. We don't share patient names necessarily, but we do share experiences and what happened, as well as conversations that occurred from that return to hospital with all the parties involved, and bring back a plan of care or some kind of outline or outcome of what is best for that patient. And then we share it at the larger meeting, best practices learned from the accountability meeting. Next slide, please. The standards meeting is something where the key stakeholders at the initial meeting of SDCC agreed to be a part of to ensure that this is not a marketing, it is not a networking entity, and that we kind of hold everybody to the same guidelines. We also prepare for speakers for the year and bring in great resources such as Telligent to bring the most recent data from CMS and to help us improve our outcomes and goals. Next slide, please. Some of the challenges we face. These are my fun slides. I like these. So I went to each of the members and some that aren't members, and I just said, what were your challenges prior to the initiation of the, or even the first few years of the readmission? And these are some of their challenges. I think the biggest one was lack of communication all the way through the spectrum, from the non-medical, medical, home health, the skilled nursing, the hospital to hospital, the ED to the floor, the PCP lack of engagement, the one physician to another physician within the hospital rerunning tests. It was less than perfect. And I think the biggest challenge I consistently heard through all of the members that I spoke with is if the patient readmitted to one entity and then came back to another to readmit, there wasn't a way to communicate any prior labs, tests, anything. And it was very costly to rerun all the same work. There was nothing streamlined. Next slide, please. Challenges from physicians. I think the biggest one were the PCPs were unaware that the patient even went to the hospital originally, only aware once the home health sent them a 485, or called for admission frequency or permission to accept patients, which really confused these physicians because they had no idea they even were admitted, let alone readmitted, and in many cases. Some of the challenges several PCPs ran into is it's always been this way. So I want to send my patient, Betty, who's 82, lives alone, unsafe, but she doesn't really meet medical need anymore. I'm going to send her to the hospital to activate her 3 midnight stay just because we need to place her. And that changed this year. And all of a sudden the PCPs are like, well, what am I going to do now? And so Medicare, as well as all the downward providers, understand that the patients have to meet appropriateness for each level of care. And these are some of the challenges they ran into. And again, if you see the theme, it's lack of communication all the way across the board. Next slide, please. Challenges for home health. I think we had some challenges. That's an understatement. So
5 minutes.
Okay, sounds good. I'm hurrying. I think the biggest challenges for us is, again, lack of communication, mostly missing orders. I think if they would send in an eval and treat without an H&P, a history and physical, and then we wouldn't know who the PCP was, and we needed to know who the physician was in order to engage in home care to initiate. So the hospital would send a patient home at Friday at 4:45 without the PCP, and we have to call to get a VO to get the patient on service. And we went no. And the physician, there was no PCP. So the patient went without any services all weekend. And that was one of the many challenges. And this is a multitude of different home cares that I was talking with. Wound care orders, patient would, we'd walk into the home, the patient's absolutely not appropriate for that setting, and there's safety concerns on a, Friday evening. Those are some of the challenges that we ran into. The last thing I want to leave you with is my Billy experience. I love Billy. That's not his real name. But in 2002, I had 6 readmissions in 6 weeks. He's my special case. So I would end up driving to Billy's house at one point because I couldn't figure out what is going on. I'm not getting a report from the hospital. The PCP is absolutely not supportive. He's like, Billy's going to go where Billy wants to go, and just send me an order if you need it. Click, And the hospital consistently rerun these tests because they didn't have a tracking system at the time to look at the history of Billy. So Monday comes, and next slide. Monday would come, and I'd find out that this guy would be admitted again. So come to find out, so I contacted the social worker at this hospital. She educated the case manager and the ED that any time that Billy came in to hold off tests because he was hungry and he really liked the cheeseburgers at this one place, and the big fire truck, not just a non-medical or a paramedic, but the big fire truck at $4,000 would come out and pick Billy up and take him for a $4,000 cheeseburger, and they'd rerun $15,000 tests. And little Billy would have to sit there, and he'd get fed, and he'd get like a it was awesome. He'd get like a luxury stay, and then go home Monday to a small cubicle of a room, and the PCP's like, do what you got to do. So the interesting thing is that once we met all his other needs, and we met all of his resources, I personally made sure he had a cheeseburger every day because it was more cost effective than pulling out a $4,000 fire truck. It's not a Cinderella story, but it was helpful and successful for all of us. Next slide. Forward movement. Now we got one left. The goals, increase membership. We want to include as many participants that are willing to be engaged and be accountable and transparent, as many as we can, because I think that's what's going to strengthen processes amongst all of us. Communicate efficiently and use SBAR and all the other tools. And of course, increase communication and community education so seniors understand that we're here to help them and not limit them. And then last slide, just something I want you to think of. A hospital in New York was spending nearly $1.2 million annually on foot amputations and assistive devices on homeless patients that would develop frostbite infections and go untreated in the winter months. So a CEO decided it is cheaper for the hospital to buy a $30 pair of Army surplus winter boots for those that came into the ER than it was to provide a $7,000 surgery that they would never receive reimbursement on, nor the $15,000 rehab. So I believe the patient would also rather have the new boots as well. So sometimes I think we have to think a little bit out of the box and become a little bit more efficient. And our whole goal is to improve everybody's outcomes, because it's like we're holding the checkbook of Medicare and, of course, our upward stream providers, and we are now accountable across the board. So that is it for me. I gave you my contact information, and if you have any questions, feel free to call or email me. And have a great day.
Thank you so much, Maria. And I love that last example about thinking outside of the box. And there are so many different care collaboratives that we know of that are going on in Colorado, but these are just two different ones. And so you heard from Maria from SDCC, and they're really focused on reducing readmissions and rehospitalizations by coming together as a community. And now you're going to hear from Kate and Deanne from Sharing the Care up in Fort Collins. And again, this is a very community-based collaborative also, but they're taking a little bit different approach on care transition. So I'm going to turn it over to Kate and Deanne.
Thank you very much. This is Deanne, and I'm sitting next to Kate. Hi, everyone. Thank you for having us here today. And we are looking at the map of our little talk in the next slide, please. So what we have is a sort of a structure, which for us is a little bit new because we came together truly as community members. Kate works for a home health agency. I work for a large hospital system that also includes a medical group. So we are used to structure and organization, but we decided early on that when we came to our Sharing the Care meetings that we would leave our badges at the door, because we came as community members, whether or not we ourselves had experienced our healthcare system and the difficult transitions of care between, say, hospital, home health, and skilled nursing facilities, or whether that had happened to our parents, our neighbors, or our kids. We knew that we could do it better, and that was our rallying cry. A little history. We started with a little idea, and the idea was to pilot a small change between patients who were coming from skilled nursing facilities to the radiology department, and they were showing up without real paperwork or an idea of why they were there. And radiology didn't know if they'd eaten, if this was their baseline cognition, if they could get out of the wheelchair safely. There was very little information. So the very first project was the purple folder. And we created a patient passport that had all pertinent information as best we knew. And we asked the skilled nursing facilities and the EMTs, who were transporting them a lot of the time, to look for the purple folder. And we had the patients like clutching it to their chest back and forth, so that there was at least a modicum of communication happening. But because of the people that we needed to talk to get that project started, we tapped into this amazing need and this passion to change what was not working, and started inviting people to a place, a meeting. We just kind of set a time and found a room, and before we knew it, we had 70 plus people coming to each meeting wanting to make change in northern Colorado. So from there, we decided we needed a little structure, so we created a leadership team and had the benefit of training for community organizing. We actually had our leadership team go through a formalized training of the community organizing workshop through the ICPC, which was fabulous. And we went back to the very large group and asked them to tell us what their top needs were. What are our common values? What is our common purpose? What is our shared suffering? And what are our dreams for this community? And from there, we came up with peak goals. And
which slide are we supposed to be on? I think we might be on the wrong.
Yep, nope, you can move on to the next slide, which is a lot of words, sorry. So the overview is there, and Kate's going to take on some of those, but we came up with transforming our shared suffering to deliver better transitions of care, change in our community. And you can see that we had representatives from all over our community. And we were so excited to find that new people came each and every meeting, and they were saying, we heard this is a great place to make a difference. So we are, next slide, and I'm sorry it's sideways, but that's intentional because we are looking at the future, which is open, and reviewing our successes and our challenges to date. And I'm going to let Kate take this from here.
So as Deanne mentioned, we started with a basic need, which was the communication between skilled nursing and radiology at the hospital. And it morphed into everyone having a need. And we have continuously engaged our entire community on every project that we kind of take on. But it was the community who said, this is what we're going to do to start. And that was in the fall of 2013. We're going to, and we identified medication reconciliation and respecting choices as our two primary initiatives. And so, and later on we'll show you the steps that our community identified would be the best steps to achieve a goal of having perfect medication reconciliation across the continuum and having advanced directives not only implemented within all of the homes of the residents in Northern Colorado, but respected at every care level. So those were the two things that we took on. It's kind of like solving world hunger, but we're not scared. What we identified and what our common, next slide, what our common thread is and what keeps us going and what keeps us motivated and what keeps us identifying new opportunities to improve our community is the power of story. Sharing what our story is personally, what the story is between us and the people in our community, what our shared suffering is, and what our ask is and our challenges to our community. So each of our large group sessions, we have someone share their personal story and what their ask is for the larger community. Because it takes a little bit to kind of identify what your story is personally, we actually implemented a training. We call it our boot camp once a month. So everyone can come in, kind of have an idea of what Sharing the Care campaign is, what current initiatives we are working on, and how to draft their story so that they can kind of identify where they might best fit into this campaign. A really good example of the power of story is James Croft's Harvard presentation. I kind of included a little snippet there, so if you go to YouTube, I would encourage all of you to go there and check out that story, and that gives you an idea of the stories that are being shared here in Northern Colorado, which again is the driver and our common thread and what keeps this passion going forward. We'll go on to the next slide. Same as everything else that we've done with this campaign, we included the community on what is our mission, what is our vision, and what are our values. It wasn't something that it's a snowflake model of leadership, so it's not us driving down things that we want to be our mission or vision or values. It's engaging the community on what do we want to do. So you can kind of see that we're campaigning to improve the lives of our Northern Colorado community members, particularly older adults, by identifying and respecting informed choices, promoting best practice in medication reconciliation and chronic condition management, and communicating essential information at every transition. We want to have a positive influence in our community through our collective impact. You can read vision and values. And then we have a basic set of rules when joining our campaign, which is to respect people's time, arrive, start, and end on time, and just really be engaged. Next slide. To give you an idea of some of the terms and references we use, I just wanted to include that slide. And I believe, you're going to get the slides out to everyone after this. To give you an idea of when we meet the second Thursday of every month at Poudre Valley Hospital. It's actually every other month because we wanted to allow our peak initiatives groups to meet in between months so that we can get some real action completed between. We did create a website with information on our campaign, which is www.sharingthecarecampaign.com. And through our advanced care planning initiative and respecting choices, we've really adopted the Conversation Project in Northern Colorado as a tool to make this goal happen. And so we have presenters all over Northern Colorado presenting the Conversation Project. We're continuously training facilitators and have already presented to hundreds and hundreds of people in our community. I think we're reaching the 1,000 number shortly. Our leadership team is self-identified people who are so passionate that we spend additional time putting together the content of our large group sessions and leading our peak initiatives. Currently, we're working on 5 initiatives in Northern Colorado, advanced care planning. We're still working on that through Conversation Project, so you'll sometimes hear it referred to as TCP, which is Conversation Project for short. Medication management has kind of morphed into the patient passport, and so we're actually putting together a patient passport that will be distributed. Our goal is to have everyone have it. And so if you want to progress to the next slides, you can kind of see how we put together our goals and our steps. This is our initial medication management goal and timeline that we put together. And if you go to the next one, you can just kind of go through, and I'll provide you guys with all of the steps of the goals that we identified. But yes, so again, patient passport, advanced care planning. We're also working on patient advocacy. We actually had a Parkinson's support group here in Northern Colorado who said, you know what, we want our voices heard as a Parkinson's patient in our community. And we invited, for one of our large groups sessions, a panel of Parkinson's patients to just share with us their story and their experiences and to send asks out into our community. And we're piggybacking off of that and engaging many other groups. The next one coming up will be with Alzheimer's patients in our community, and kind of identifying those chronic disease patients is a great opportunity for us as a medical community to learn from. So you can kind of shift through there to see what our goals are, and we'll share them with all of you so that you can see the steps that we identified. And we'd love if you have ideas of how we can move these initiatives forward to please reach out to us. The other 2 goals are more supportive in nature. We have a marketing team that has started work together to let people know about Conversation Project presentations happening, about what our Sharing the Care campaign is doing, and then, of course, a fundraising group to fund all of these things like materials for Conversation Project presentations, materials for patient passports, and we already, fortunately, have secured some funding to make those things start. So that gives you an idea of some of the initiatives we are working on. I'm going to hand it back over to Deanne now.
We were asked to identify some of our successes and challenges. And as you can see, it's been a lot of work. People have put in a lot of time and effort to think ahead. What will our peaks be? What is our mountaintop goal? How will we get there? And when we started off, medication management was certainly a passion and a need and a shared suffering. And in one sense, you could say that medication management was one of our challenges, or maybe even a failure, because we determined after about 9 months we really weren't the decision makers in that. We could affect some things, and we did. We got some changes made to our big EHR, but we couldn't solve it. And that was a frustration. But because we are sharing the care and we are a snowflake model of leadership, what we then did is regroup, and we came to the conclusion that maybe we couldn't make that mountaintop goal happen, but we could take one aspect of that, which is the patient passport, and we could really focus on that, making it better, making it work for the community members that we did have in the room, and, if you will, market that as a possible solution until our various EHRs get interoperability, which I'm sure will happen very soon. That being said, one of the barriers was also that we had so many people coming in and out. We have had hundreds of people come to our meetings, and some of them come every time, and some of them come one time. But even when we broke into small groups at our big meetings, we would come up with an idea, and then oftentimes we'd have homework. We wanted people to be invested in between meetings. And people would be excited, and they would take that homework, and then they wouldn't come back to the next meeting. So then you'd be looking at a new group of people and think, well, that was a great idea last time. What are we going to do this time? Should we do it again? Should we just drop it? So that was a challenge, and we needed to flex with that. And that is why we now meet as a big group every other month, and in between we have what we call special teams, like a football team. And the special teams are accountable to each other, and they are the ones who come up with the peaks, the mountaintops, and the tactics, and then report back to the big group. And that has worked so much better. So we're pleased that because we are small and flexible and responsive, that we are finding leaders and resources to meet the common goals and common needs, and that has been a revelation for us. Last slide? Oh, that's it? Okay.
That's the last slide I've got for you guys.
Okay. That is, I think, where we would like to leave off, and happy to answer any questions.
Great, thank you. This is Anna Morris from the Colorado Hospital Association. Just reminding everyone that if you do have a question, to please type it in the chat box so that we can MC the questions from here. While we're waiting for people to do that, I just wanted to invite everyone on the call today to please join us and meet your peers working in care transitions in person next Friday. Again, it is located at the Denver Police Protection Association, which is a very central location in downtown Denver, easy with parking and easy with logistics. So if you have questions, please let us know about that. We will be having several different perspectives on building transitions from the inside out, and it's a great venue to network and learn from your peers, find out what other people in the state are doing, and learn how to improve your internal processes. Or if you feel you're doing a great job, we would love to invite you to share those with everyone. So please sign up, and we hope to see you at the symposium next Friday. And if you have any questions, please type them into the box.
While we're waiting for questions, I'll take presenter's prerogative. So this is both for Maria and Kate and Deanne. What do you see as the biggest opportunity out there right now for communities?
Deanne, what instantly comes to mind is including the patient's voice. I know that I get stuck in my bubble of being I'm a nurse, I'm a quality improvement. I'm in administration. I speak a language that is unique to healthcare. And one of the greatest joys in sharing the CARE campaign is to hear not only the patient voice in the Parkinson's and Alzheimer's support group members and just general community members who have now decided to come to us, but in looking at my professional peers and, again, taking away our badges and then hearing their stories as people, as patients, and as consumers, and realizing that this affects all of us at a cellular level. We can really serve our community best by being part of our community and making sure that that voice is front and center.
This is Maria. Real quick, I just want to throw my 2 cents in. I am a nerd. I'm going to just put that out there. I'm a data cruncher, and I read a lot. And where Medicare is going, and really, it's not just the 5-star initiatives that people are trying to jockey for and the reducing of their own readmissions and development of ACOs, but it all starts with the primary care physician and having them engaged because they care. I mean, they carry the whole entire caseload, regardless of the patients in the hospital, at the skilled nursing facility, or downstream, getting them involved. So I think in Denver, our biggest opportunity is getting the physician involved at the table. That's it.
Great. Thank you. Were there any other contributions there? Did I cut someone off? All right. Well, we don't have any questions in the queue, so thank you, everyone, for joining us, both on the phone and our presenters. And I would like to invite everyone to take a moment to register for the symposium. Come join us, come network, and learn how to build transformation from the inside out. Just a reminder, the webinar has been recorded, and this will be available on the Healthy Transitions website along with the slides in the next few days. Have a great day, everyone, and hopefully we'll see you next Friday. Thank you.
Thank you.
Are we good?